Look around this room. Look at the faces of the people you passed on your way here today. The barista who made your coffee. The executive in the glass office, the person sitting right next to you. Statistically, some of them are living a double life. Not as spies or criminals, but as architects of a hidden emotional world. They have built a fortress around their heart, so impenetrable, so masterfully designed that they can have multiple people orbiting their life, feeling a deep connection to them, while they themselves remain utterly and completely alone at the center. Have you ever felt that chilling distance in someone you loved? That phantom limb of their affection? That was not an accident. That was the masterpiece of an avoidant. For years you've been told the story of the needy, the clingy, the desperate for love. But tonight we rip the veil off the silent architects of emotional chaos. This is not about judgment. This is about understanding the invisible prison they have built for themselves and the wreckage they leave in their wake. If you have ever been left in the cold by someone who swore they were warm, if you have ever tried to love a ghost, then lean in close, because we are about to turn on the lights. The journey of the avoidant does not begin with a conscious decision to hurt or deceive. It starts in a moment of profound vulnerability, often so far in the past that it's been erased from active memory, yet it lives on in the very wiring of their nervous system. Imagine a child reaching out for comfort and being met with a wall of silence, or worse, rejection. That initial spark of need, that fundamental human craving for connection, gets seared with the pain of neglect. The lesson is learned, not intellectually, but viscerally, in the very cells of their body. To need is to suffer. To want is to be wounded. And so the psyche, in its brilliant, survival-oriented wisdom, begins a construction project of epic proportions. It decides to build a fortress so secure that no future pain can ever penetrate it again. But here is the tragic irony of this magnificent construction. The very walls designed to keep pain out also ensure that the person inside will forever be starved of the oxygen of genuine love. They become the lonely monarch of a deserted kingdom. The bricks of this fortress are not made of stone and mortar. They are crafted from invisible psychological material. The first brick is hyper-independence. This isn't the healthy self-reliance we all aspire to. This is a militant, non-negotiable dogma. I can do it all myself. I need no one. They become masters of their own domain, curating a life that, on the surface, looks incredibly put together. Successful career, impeccable home, a calendar filled with self-improvement. They are the picture of competence. But this competence is a weapon against intimacy, because if you can do everything for yourself, you never have to rely on another soul. You never have to be vulnerable enough to say, I can't do this alone. I need your help. That admission is the kryptonite to their entire operation. The second brick is the narrative of fine. Ask them how they are, and you will always get the same answer, I'm fine. It is a shield word, a termination of the emotional inquiry. Behind that fine could be a swirling vortex of fear, sadness, or loneliness, but to admit that would be to open a drawbridge, to invite someone into the inner courtyard, so they maintain the facade, believing that if they can just project fine for long enough, they might eventually start to believe it themselves. Then comes the most deceptive brick, the illusion of openness. This is where the secret keeping of multiple partners becomes possible. The avoidant can often talk about their past, their dreams, even their fears, in a way that feels deeply intimate. They might share a story of a childhood humiliation or a professional failure, and the person on the receiving end feels chosen, special, as if they are being granted access to the inner sanctum. But they are not. They are being shown a meticulously curated museum exhibit. The avoidant is sharing history, not present moment vulnerability. There is a world of difference between saying, I was hurt 10 years ago, and saying, the way you just looked at me makes me terrified that you will leave, and that fear is paralyzing me right now. One is a story, the other is a raw, real-time opening of the heart. The avoidant becomes a master of the former to expertly avoid the latter. This fortress, with its walls of independence, its moat of fine, and its decoy museum of past openness, becomes the central operating base. From here they can launch relationships, because the human spirit still yearns for connection, but they do so with a failsafe. No one ever gets to see the throne room. No one ever gets to meet the lonely, scared king or queen sitting in the dark. They keep multiple partners by ensuring that each one is only ever allowed into a specific, designated wing of the castle, and they are masterful at ensuring those guests never ever run into each other in the hallways. Intimacy is the ultimate threat to the avoidant's carefully constructed world. It is the Trojan horse that could breach their walls, dismantle their defenses, and expose the raw, unguarded self they have spent a lifetime protecting. Therefore, they cannot allow true intimacy to occur. But the human hunger for connection is a powerful force, both within themselves and in the partners they attract. So they become master illusionists, architects of a mirage so convincing it feels more real than reality itself. They create phantom intimacy. This is the sensation of deep connection without any of the actual vulnerable substance. It's the feeling of being close without ever truly being with the other person. It's like a master chef creating a meal that smells divine, plating it exquisitely, but when you take a bite, you discover it's made of scented air. It nourishes nothing, but the anticipation was everything. How is this phantom constructed? It begins with future faking. This is not always a conscious, malicious lie. It is often a narrative the avoidant themselves wants to believe in. They will paint vivid, beautiful pictures of a shared future. Next summer, we should rent a villa in Italy. When we get a dog, let's name him Zeus. Imagine us in 10 years, sitting on a porch swing, watching the sunset. These statements are not promises, they are emotional hooks. They give the partner a hit of dopamine, a sense of security and belonging, a feeling that this is going somewhere. The avoidant gets to enjoy the pleasant fantasy without having to endure the terrifying day-to-day vulnerability of building that future in the present moment. The partner is left holding the blueprint, while the avoidant has already mentally moved on to sketching another dream with someone else. This future talk is a powerful tool for maintaining multiple connections because each partner feels they are part of a long-term plan, unaware that they are just one of several blueprints in the architect's portfolio. The second pillar of phantom intimacy is intensity over consistency. An avoidant can be the most captivating, intense, and present person you have ever met in bursts. They can give you a weekend that feels like a lifetime, where their attention is laser-focused, the chemistry is electric, and you feel like the only person in the universe. They create peak experiences, dramatic, romantic, sexually charged encounters that sear themselves into your memory. But then, Monday comes, and they retreat. The text becomes shorter. The energy withdraws. This roller coaster is not a flaw, it's a feature. Consistency requires sustained emotional presence. It requires showing up on a boring Tuesday and being willing to be vulnerable about a bad day at work. Intensity, however, is a sprint. It's a performance. It allows the avoidant to feel the thrill of connection without the grind of true relating. For the partner, this hot and cold cycle is addictive. The highs are so high that they spend the lows desperate to get back to that peak, interpreting the avoidance withdrawal as a mysterious challenge to be solved. When managing multiple partners, the avoidant simply rotates these intense bursts, keeping everyone hooked on the intermittent reinforcement of their affection, ensuring that no single relationship ever settles into the consistent, mundane rhythm that would demand their full, authentic, and vulnerable self. Language, in the hands of an avoidant, is not a tool for building truth. It is a tool for managing proximity. It is a smoke machine and a mirror designed to create a fog of potential that keeps you hoping, guessing, and most importantly, at just the right distance. They're virtuosos of the non-committal, maestros of the vague. They understand that to make a concrete statement is to build a wall that defines a reality, and walls can be crashed into. But to speak in possibilities is to create a maze with no center, a labyrinth where you'll wander forever, believing the treasure is just around the next corner. This is the art of misdirection, and it is the linguistic engine that allows them to maintain multiple relationships without any single one feeling definitively claimed. Listen to their words. You will rarely hear a definitive "I am" or "I will." Instead, you are bathed in the soft, hopeful light of maybe, someday, and we'll see. Maybe we can go to that concert next month. Someday I'd love to take you to meet my family. We'll see how things go. These phrases feel open-ended and hopeful to the listener, but for the speaker, They are escape hatches. They are sentences with no contractual obligation. If challenged, the avoidant can always say, "I never promised that. I just said maybe." This linguistic style keeps all options perpetually open. Partner A can be told, "I'm not sure I'm ready for a big commitment right now," while partner B is hearing, "I can really see a future with you," and both statements are true in the moment they are spoken because they are based on feeling, not on a concrete decision. The avoidant's internal state is their only reality, and since that state is often in flux, their external commitments must be equally fluid. Then there is the masterstroke, the shared fantasy project. This is where they recruit you as a co-writer of the phantom intimacy script. They don't just tell you about the future, they ask you to build it with them. What do you think our home would look like? If we could travel anywhere, where would you want to go? In these moments, you are not receiving a promise from them, you are making a promise to yourself, with them as the passive audience. They get to feel the warmth of your dreaming without having to shoulder the responsibility of making it happen. You become emotionally invested in a future that exists only in the realm of conversation, and they remain clean, free from the accusation of lying because, technically, they were just asking questions. This misdirection is how they keep the plate spinning. A text to one partner saying, "Thinking of our dream kitchen," requires no more emotional energy than a text to another saying, "Wish you were here with me." Both are phantoms, both are hooks. Both create a powerful sense of connection in the receiver, while demanding almost nothing of the sender's true vulnerable self. They have not committed to building the kitchen or to booking the flight. They have only committed to the text message. And in that gap between the profound emotion their words evoke and the minimal commitment those words actually contain, lies the entire secret architecture of their emotional world. Just as the connection feels like it's deepening, just as you feel you're getting close to the real person behind the curtain, it happens. The air grows cold. The texts go unanswered for days. The plans get canceled with a vague, plausible excuse. Work is just crazy right now. I'm dealing with some family stuff. You have just witnessed the emotional Houdini in his most famous act, the disappearing act. This isn't a cruel game, though it feels that way. It is a primal physiological response to a perceived threat. For the avoidant, intimacy is not a goal, it's a trigger. As a partner gets closer, their nervous system begins to scream danger. The amygdala, the brain's alarm bell, fires at the prospect of enmeshment, of being swallowed, of losing the very self they have fought so hard to protect. The retreat is not a choice, it is a compulsion. It is the fire alarm going off, and they are simply running for the exit. This disappearing act is choreographed with precision. It often follows a moment of genuine vulnerability, either from you or from them. You share a deep insecurity, or you have a wonderfully intimate weekend where defenses were down. This moment of real connection is the trigger. The avoidance system becomes flooded with what they interpret as a loss of autonomy. The need to reestablish distance becomes as urgent as a need for air. They don't say, "I need space because your vulnerability triggered my core wound of engulfment." They simply vanish, often behind a wall of productivity or obligation. They will immerse themselves in work, in a hobby, in fixing something around the house. Any activity that reinforces their identity as a self-sufficient, independent entity separate from you and the terrifying pull of your needs. When managing multiple partners, this Houdini act is essential for maintaining the delicate ecosystem. The retreat from partner A often coincides with an intense re-engagement with partner B or C. The emotional energy and need for autonomy that was triggered by one relationship finds its outlet in the novelty and lower stakes of another. The new or more distant partner doesn't yet carry the weight of expectation. They are still in the phantom intimacy phase. So, the avoidant can retreat from the threatening intimacy of one relationship and find solace in the safe illusion of another. They are not disappearing into a void. They are often disappearing into the arms of someone else, all the while justifying it to themselves because they feel smothered or pressured by the first partner. It's a perpetual cycle of using one relationship as an escape from another, ensuring that no single connection ever becomes deep or stable enough to truly threaten the fortress walls. The partners are left confused, blaming themselves, wondering what they did wrong when, in reality, they simply got too close to the fire, and the avoidant, true to their survival programming, had to run for cover. For most people, their life is a narrative, a flowing story where the different chapters connect and influence one another. For the avoidant, life is not a story, it is a filing cabinet. Each relationship, each partner, exists in a separate locked drawer. There is no cross-referencing. There is no overarching plot. This psychological mechanism is known as compartmentalization, and it is the cognitive masterpiece that makes a secret life not just possible but sustainable. It is the mental firewall that prevents the cognitive dissonance of loving multiple people from crashing their entire internal system. They don't feel like a cheater or a liar because in their mind, they aren't. In the work drawer, they are a competent professional. In the partner A drawer, they are a devoted lover on Tuesday nights. In the partner B drawer, they are an adventurous companion on weekends. When one drawer is open, the others do not exist. This goes far beyond simply not mentioning one person to another. It is a deep psychological segmentation of the self. They develop different aspects of their personality to match each compartment. With one partner, they might be the intellectual, discussing philosophy and current events. With another, they are the free spirit, up for any adventure. They are not being entirely fake. They are showcasing authentic, but fragmented, parts of themselves. The tragedy is that no single person ever gets to meet the whole integrated human being. The avoidant themselves may not even know who that whole person is. This compartmentalization is exhausting, requiring immense mental energy to maintain the walls between the different worlds, but it is preferable to the alternative, the terrifying chaos of integrating all those parts into one coherent identity that would have to make real definitive choices. The digital age has made compartmentalization a science. They are masters of multiple messaging apps, secret email accounts, and meticulously managed social media privacy settings. Their phone is a fortress within the fortress. A notification from one partner will pop up on WhatsApp, while the threads with another exist solely on Signal or Telegram. They have mental maps of which stories to share with which person, which restaurants are theirs with a specific partner, and which friends are safe to bring into which circle. This is not a spontaneous, passionate affair. It is a managed administrative operation. The goal is to prevent any two worlds from colliding, because a collision would force a reality they are not prepared to face, that they are living multiple lives and that to choose one would be to destroy the others, and in the process confront the hollow emptiness at the center of their own fractured self. The compartmentalization isn't just about keeping partners secret from each other. It is about keeping the truth of their own fragmented existence secret from themselves. Beneath the confidence, the competence, the captivating intensity, lies the engine of this entire machine, a deep, molten core of shame and the unshakable belief that they are fundamentally unworthy of a healthy, lasting, singular love. This is not low self-esteem. This is a foundational truth they have absorbed about their very right to exist in a connected state. They believe, on a level deeper than thought, that there is something broken, flawed, or missing within them, and they live in terror of that flaw being discovered. This core unworthiness is the fuel that powers the fortress walls, the phantom intimacy, the misdirection, and the disappearing acts. Every strategy is ultimately designed to prevent you from seeing what they are convinced is their true rotten core. This belief system creates a devastating paradox. They crave love and connection more than anything. It is a basic human need, but they are convinced that if anyone truly saw them, the real them, they would be met with revulsion and abandonment. So, they preempt this inevitable rejection. They create relationships that are inherently unstable and secretive, because a stable, open, committed relationship is the one environment where their perceived truth is bound to be discovered. The chaos is a self-fulfilling prophecy. By keeping multiple partners, they ensure that no single relationship can become deep enough for that exposure to occur. The inevitable collapse of each relationship, due to their own avoidant behaviors, simply serves as proof of their original hypothesis. See, I am unlovable. It always falls apart. They are the arsonist who sets the fire and then points to the ashes as evidence that the house was always doomed to burn. This is why they often gravitate towards partners who are emotionally unavailable themselves or who have an anxious attachment style. The anxious partner's need for reassurance and consistency confirms the avoidant's deepest fear. I cannot meet their needs. I am failing them. I am not enough. This dynamic reinforces the need to escape and seek solace in another compartment where the demands are temporarily lower. The cycle of unworthiness is a prison of their own making, but it feels like the fundamental law of their universe. They don't believe they deserve to be someone's one and only, so they create a world where they are never forced to be. They become collectors of partial affections because the totality of one person's real, enduring love is a gift they feel too broken to ever receive without shattering. The relationship with an avoidant is not a linear journey that might end. It is a circular track designed for a crash. The cycle of sabotage is a predictable, repetitive loop of hope, trigger, withdrawal, and chaos that they unconsciously orchestrate to maintain their internal equilibrium. It begins with the hope phase. This is the initial connection, the phantom intimacy, the future faking. It's intoxicating. It feels like you finally found the one. Then comes the trigger phase. Something happens, a request for more time, a conversation about defining the relationship, a simple expression of emotional need that flips the avoidance survival switch. They feel the walls closing in. This triggers the withdrawal phase, the emotional Houdini act. They pull away, become distant, critical, or find flaws in you or the relationship. You, sensing the connection, slipping away, likely enter a state of anxiety, trying to pull them back in, which only confirms their fear of engulfment and makes them withdraw further. Then comes the sabotage event. This is the masterstroke. The avoidant, now drowning in the discomfort of the triggered intimacy, will consciously or unconsciously create a crisis. They might pick a fight over something trivial. They might discover a fundamental incompatibility. They might become caught in a lie or create a situation where you are forced to end things. In the context of multiple partners, this often involves allowing worlds to almost collide, creating a drama that justifies a retreat. The function of the sabotage is not to end the relationship permanently, though it often does. Its primary function is to reset the distance. By creating a conflict or a rupture, they successfully dismantle the threatening intimacy and return the relationship to a safer, more distant, or even conflicted state. This relieves the immense pressure they were feeling. It proves once again that relationships are dangerous and unpredictable. And for the avoidant, this chaotic, painful cycle is more familiar and therefore safer than the terrifying stillness of a secure, stable, and truly intimate bond. They will often cycle through this pattern with each of their partners at different times, using the chaos in one relationship as a reason to invest more heavily in another, only to eventually trigger the same cycle there. It is a perpetual motion machine of emotional unavailability, powered by the relentless engine of their core wound. The fortress, for all its impressive architecture, is still a prison, and every prisoner, no matter how comfortable the cell, eventually hears a call to freedom. The Great Awakening is not about a partner forcing their way in. It is about the avoidant finally hearing the echo of their own soul from the other side of the wall, deciding to pick up a hammer. This awakening is always preceded by what I call the crisis of exhaustion, the weight of the double life, the mental energy required for compartmentalization, the constant vigilance, the emotional hangover from the cycles of sabotage. It all becomes too heavy. The fantasy of self-sufficiency crumbles under the sheer, lonely fatigue of maintaining it. They look at the wreckage of their relationships, the confused faces of people they genuinely cared for, and they can no longer blame the outside world. The common denominator is them. This moment of reckoning is the most painful and courageous of their life. It requires them to do the very thing their entire existence has been structured to avoid, to look inward with radical honesty. They must confront the core wound of unworthiness, not as a truth, but as a story written by a hurt child a long time ago. The awakening begins when they stop asking, "Why does everyone always leave me?" and start asking, "What is the part of me that pushes everyone away?" This is the pivot from victimhood to agency. It is the realization that the walls they built for protection have become the bars of their own solitary confinement. The path out is not through finding the right partner, but through a conscious, often therapeutic, deconstruction of their defense mechanisms. They must learn to sit with the terrifying discomfort of vulnerability without fleeing. They must practice stating their needs clearly. They must learn to tolerate the anxiety of true closeness without sabotaging it. They must integrate the fragmented parts of themselves and grieve the relationships they destroyed. It is a journey of learning that their need for love is not a weakness, but their humanity, that their desire for connection is not a threat to their autonomy, but its fulfillment. The Great Awakening is the decision to trade the lonely safety of the fortress for the messy, unpredictable, and breathtakingly beautiful landscape of a real, connected life. It is the decision to stop being a ghost and to finally fully inhabit their own skin. What you have witnessed tonight is not a portrait of a villain, but a map of a prison. The avoidant attachment style is not a life sentence of emotional isolation. It is a survival strategy that has outlived its purpose. It is a suit of armor worn so long that the person inside has forgotten the feel of the sun on their own skin. The secret-keeping, the multiple partners, the phantom intimacy, these are not the actions of a heartless manipulator, but the desperate, flawed maneuvers of a soul terrified of its own deepest need to be truly seen, known, and loved. If you see yourself in this portrait, know this. Your awareness is the first crack of light under the door. That feeling of being trapped, of being an imposter in your own relationships, a feeling of profound emptiness even when surrounded by people who adore you, that is not your true self. That is the echo of an old wound. The fortress was built by a child who is trying to survive. You are now an adult with the power to make a different choice. The path to freedom begins with a single courageous act of self-honesty. It begins when you stop running from the very love you crave and turn to face the fear that drives you. If you have been on the receiving end of this behavior, I want you to understand something crucial. It was never about you. Your love was not insufficient. Your needs were not too much. You were not crazy. You were trying to build a house on a foundation of quicksand. The confusion, the anxiety, the heartbreak you felt was a perfectly sane response to an insane situation. You were dancing with a ghost, and you can stop blaming yourself for not being able to hold on to something that was never truly there. The greatest lesson here is one of profound responsibility and empowerment. For the avoidant, the responsibility is to finally, courageously do the work to heal the core wound that fuels this entire dynamic. It is to trade the illusion of control for the reality of connection. For the partner, the responsibility is to recognize these patterns early, to stop trying to love someone into wholeness and to have the self-respect to walk away from a dynamic that requires you to make yourself smaller, to question your reality, or to live in the shadows. True, powerful, life-altering love can only exist in the space of vulnerability and mutual commitment. It requires two whole people choosing each other, day after day, not out of fear or lack, but out of abundance and desire. It requires showing up with your entire authentic self, not just the curated, compartmentalized fragments you think are acceptable. This is the love you deserve. This is the love we are, all capable of giving and receiving. So let tonight be a turning point. Let it be the end of the ghost stories and the beginning of a new, authentic narrative. Whether you need to pick up the hammer to break down your own walls, or whether you need to finally walk out of the labyrinth someone else has built for you, the power has always been in your hands. Stop orbiting the empty center. Decide to step into the light and build a life not of secret compartments, but of one whole, magnificent, and undeniable truth. Thank you. Thank you for your courage in being here tonight, for your willingness to look at the difficult, messy, and often painful truths about love and the human heart. This is not easy work, but it is the most important work you will ever do. The work of becoming conscious, the work of healing, the work of claiming the life and the love you were born to have. Now, go out there and build it. Goodbye.